Water Resource Recovery Facility. Note the new name change. First, I'd like to recognize in the audience today we do have Vice Mayor Bo Wright and Councilman Feraldi, so thank y'all for coming. As part of the completion of the long-term control plan and the control building renovations, we elected to change the name to reflect how our mission is taking on a more green initiative. In addition to what you're here to see today, the brick and mortar structures, please note that over the last 4 years, we've added a screenings area for proper disposal of hydro-excavation waste, leaf litter, and BMP filter cleanouts. We also added a fog station for collection of fat, oils, and grease that ultimately gets recycled into biodiesel. We've also added a truck haul waste station for more efficient collection of septage loads and leachate loads from landfills, as well as we're still land applying a portion of our biosolids. So all of this is in an effort to live up to our new tagline, Steward of the James. In regards to this project, I would like to thank the following people: Greeley and Hanson as the design engineers, PC Construction as the project manager, English Construction as a major subcontractor, Tim Mitchell, our Director of Water Resources, for his efforts in making this happen, Eric Schrader, our project inspector, and Alvin Rucker. A special thank you to Alvin. He's got roughly 40 years invested in the improvement of this facility. So a special thank you to Alvin. But mainly, I would like to thank all of our staff. With that project and this project, we have roughly 4 years of continuous construction. And by construction, I don't mean across the street. We jokingly said, it's not that you come into work today and the clipboard that's normally there is not there. The wall it was hanging on is not there. At one point, they had 3 days of a plastic sheeting separating them from a jackhammer while they continue to operate the facility. So a special thank you to our staff for having worked through all that. And without further delay, I'd like to welcome up Vice Mayor Bo Wright. As Bonnie says, never leave the podium unattended.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. Can you all hear me okay? It's hot out here. My car temperature gauge said it was 81 at like 9:30, so I'll try to be really, really brief. So it's of course a great pleasure to be here with all of you this morning, and I'm here standing in for the mayor who had an appointment. It's good to see Councilmember Feraldi here, the city manager, intercity manager, Dr. Wotica, and Kent White is hanging out over there by the sheet cake, which, by the way, is the first sheet cake I've ever seen with a water treatment facility on it. So make sure to get a piece after this. This facility marks a major milestone for the city of Lynchburg, decades in the making to address our combined sewer overflows beginning in the 70s, about 20 years before I even showed up on the scene. $300 million has been invested in our CSO program and another $110 million in other water quality projects. And our city is immeasurably better for it. This has been a remarkable team effort, a real testament to long-term partnerships. To date, we've received over $68 million in state grants and over $22 million in federal grants from our state and federal partners. This is thanks to the extraordinary efforts of our state General Assembly delegation and in partnership with our congressional representatives. And just this week, Senators Newman and Peake, Delegate Walker, and Delegate Byron announced plans that could result in Lynchburg receiving an additional $25 million in ARPA funds. This, coupled with matching funds, could complete the CSO program within the next 5 years. The success of the CSO program is also thanks to city council members who, over the years, have supported the CSO program and placed a high priority on improving water quality and restoring and protecting our environment. This is also true of the supremely dedicated water resources staff and city folks who have managed the program over the years. We wouldn't be here today without your ingenuity, your resourcefulness, and leadership. There have also been many consultants and contractors, some of whom are here today, who have worked tirelessly on the program and to whom we also owe our thanks. Lastly, many of us here are citizens of the city of Lynchburg, and I want to offer both you and our fellow citizens our thanks for your patience and sacrifice over the past 5 decades. Our community has endured years of disruption, inconvenience, and unfortunately many, many sewer bills to get us here. So this has been a team effort, and while we're not done, the completion of this project marks a significant milestone towards finishing the CSO program and improving water quality here in Lynchburg now and for future generations. And lastly, before I turn it over to Tim Mitchell, who's by far the most interesting part of this program, I do want to pause and just offer deep thanks to our city, my thanks, and the thanks of our city to the incredible team at Lynchburg Water Resources. In an ordinary year, you're working really hard. In a pandemic year, you're working extraordinarily hard. Thank you for your constant focus on excellence, for your creativity, especially in your use of technology, which is amazing. If you see, I would check out the last year's report that Water Resources issues. It's amazing. I think it's like 4.7 billion gallons of wastewater treated last year, which is just unbelievable. Anyway, you all keep us safe, and our community owes you a great debt. So thank you very much. And Tim, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Wright. Can you hear me okay? All right, again. A little closer. I don't know why it's doing it to me and didn't do it to everybody else. Y'all must not want to hear me. Okay. All right, again, I'd like to welcome everybody here today, and we did pick the hottest day of the year for this, so I appreciate you coming out and enduring the heat. Fortunately, we have the tents and everything to help keep us comfortable. I'll give you a little more instructions after we finish the discussions today. But as previously was mentioned, we're not at the finish line, but at least the finish line's in sight with the CSO program. We could not have gotten to this point without the many partners that we have had that have been mentioned already today. And I'd like to thank everybody involved in this 4-decade-long effort. But it's nearly impossible to thank everybody because it's spanned generations, actually, and a long time coming to get to this point. Certainly, it's been a huge collaborative effort across many city councils, many city employees, consultants, and contractors, state and federal partners. And I'd just like to take a minute to give everybody a round of applause for their efforts in getting us to this point. So, thank you. I'm just going to go over a little bit of the background of the CSO program and how we got to where we are today. When we started back in the 1970s, approximately 1/5 of the city, about 6,000 acres, was part of the combined sewer system. So for those of you who don't really understand what the combined sewer system is, it was actually a state-of-the-art design back in the day. There's actually over 840 CSO cities throughout the United States. There's 3 in Virginia, and we happen to be one of the 3. But the idea was to get the wastewater away from habitable area as quickly as possible. So when they constructed the sewer system, they also tied it into the storm drain system. So when it rained, it helped to flush all the wastewater and the stormwater out and get it to the streams, which got it away from the populated area as quickly as possible. But over the years, obviously, disposing of raw wastewater in streams was not a good thing to do. And there are people depending upon the James River, for example, downstream as their drinking water source. So we wanted to eliminate that. So back in the 1950s, this wastewater treatment plant was built, and along with the treatment plant, a number of interceptors, the big sewer lines that captured the combined sewage and stormwater, were built to convey the wastewater to this point. But those storm lines and sewer lines were not big enough to handle all the overflow or all the flow volume. So in conjunction with that, they constructed relief points or CSO overflow points. So when the pipes filled up, and exceeded the capacity, instead of coming out of the manhole lids and across the streets and everything, it was discharged once again to this nearest stream. So the idea was, again, to get as much of the flow to the wastewater plant as we could, but then it provided a relief point to get it to the stream if the pipes couldn't handle it. So back in the 1970s, right after the promulgation of the Clean Water Act, the city really started looking at the CSO program, or looking at the city's sewer system and mapping out the CSO overflow points. And during that time, during that mapping effort, there were 132 overflow points located and identified. We were very proactive, and that's one of the themes and the whole CSO program and water resources in general, is that we want to be proactive. We feel like that's the best way to accomplish the goals and do it as quickly and as cheaply as possible. So in 1979, we completed the first infiltration and inflow evaluation study, and that's where we identified the 132 overflow points. In the 1980s, the city actually began working on the CSO program and closed 24 of the 132 overflow points. In 1989, the city, along with Wiley & Wilson, completed the 1989 CSO study update, and that was the foundation for our long-term control plan and our consent order that we signed in 1993, 1994 with the state. And the consent order that we entered into with the state was really one of the best in the country. It was a financially driven order. It didn't have any deadlines on when we had to finish the program, but it dictated how much we had to spend on the program each year to make continuous progress towards meeting the goals of the Clean Water Act and the EPA CSO policy. And we did that even before EPA came out with the CSO policy in 1994. So once again, we were ahead of the regulation with the efforts that we were doing in the city to comply and achieve water quality goals. And the 1994 CSO policy basically had three options to comply with the CSO policy. One was complete separation, and that was the path that we were originally taking with their program, was to completely separate all the stormwater and all the sewer and just send sewer to the wastewater treatment plant. The stormwater would be discharged to the streams, the wastewater would come to the treatment plant. And then the other two options that the CSO policy allowed was a presumptive approach, where if you eliminated 85% of the volume of the CSO, the combined sewer going into the rivers and streams, you were presumed to be in compliance, or if you had fewer than 4 overflows per year per outfall. And the other was a demonstrative approach, which basically said, regardless of how much you discharge into the stream, as long as you meet water quality standards, you're in compliance with the CSO policy order. So you have to prove that you're in compliance and meet water quality standards. So the air plan originally evolved around complete separation. And that was throughout the entire city, we were going to completely separate all the sewers and stormwater. So that was one of the focuses of the plan. Another focus was interceptor replacement. So we replaced all those 1950 era interceptors with larger pipes, more better material pipes, and we've replaced over 30 miles of interceptors throughout the city. The other is the rain leader disconnect program, where we've eliminated over, I believe it's 80% of the combined rooftop area that was flowing into the combined sewer system. In 2000, we once again revisited the program and took another look at where we were going with the program and completed an update study. And that study at that time still indicated that we should do complete separation. But as in the early 2000s, as regulations evolved and issues evolved with water quality in the James and the Chesapeake Bay, and then new stormwater regulations came out, we really started looking at how we're doing the program. The other challenge was, as we were working in the downtown area, and although we're doing a lot of work in the downtown area now on the water system, to go in and actually separate the downtown area would, with the sewer system and stormwater system, would have been a much more massive effort than what's been happening now with the water system. So the cost of it really just increased exponentially. So in 2008, by 2008, we had separated 75% of the combined area, closed 110 overflow points, and reduced the volume of CSO volume by 80%. But we took another look at the program. We did another update to the long-term control plan. And this update, basically what we determined was the best option was to convey and treat primarily the downtown area and the remaining combined area to the wastewater plant and treat it here and then release it to the James. That doesn't eliminate all the overflow points and doesn't eliminate all the overflows, but from the water quality standpoint, is a holistic approach, because not only were we conveying wastewater to the wastewater treatment plant for treatment, we're also conveying stormwater to the wastewater plant for treatment. So stormwater carries a lot of pollutant load as well, so even if we had separated it, there was that large pollutant load from the stormwater system that was going unchecked into the James River and the tributaries. So bringing it here for treatment actually improves water quality, even though we still have some overflows throughout the system. So let's see. Excuse me. So and then what we've been doing since that study was we revised our consent order, and what was once a great consent order is even better now. The conditions of the consent order that we're operating under now with the state is extremely good, and gives us a lot of flexibility to implement the program at the most cost-effective manner possible, and it really is a good consent order. But since then, that was signed in 2015, since then we have been working on the remaining projects that were identified in the update of the long-term control plan. There were 10 projects identified. Many of those projects are here at the wastewater treatment plant, and now those are complete. So we've completed 6 out of the 10, and we're in the process of working on the other 4. Just to summarize the accomplishments that we've done since we began the program. Out of the 6,000 acres that were originally combined, we're down to 950 acres total that's combined now. We've closed 115 of the original 132 overflow points. We're capturing 93% of the overflow volume. At the beginning is 1.2 billion gallons a year that was flowing into the James River, and we've eliminated 93% of that. We've disconnected 220 acres of rooftops that I've already mentioned. That's 81% of the rooftops. And then this project essentially doubled the wet weather capacity of this treatment plant. So now, before we could only handle about 40 million gallons per day at the wastewater plant and during the wet weather event. Now we can handle well over 80 million gallons per day. And that's in part due to the big tank behind me, but there's other improvements as part of this project throughout the facility. And Vice Mayor Wright mentioned the impacts to our ratepayers. I just want to touch on that briefly. Our median household income is $43,000 per year. Our poverty rate in Lynchburg is 19.5%. Our sewer rates have historically been among the highest in the state, especially when you compare it to median household income. One of the requirements of the consent order is our average annual sewer bill has to be 1.25% of the median household income. But there are actually 4,200 households in Lynchburg that the average annual sewer bill is over 4% of the median household income. And each household, if you compare how much we've invested into the program, that's for each household that's over $17,000. We have about $50 million left to go to finish the program. That's about another $2,800 per household that needs to be invested in the program. So we're talking big dollars here for a a small city, and the $300 million that we've invested matches what Richmond has invested in their combined sewer system. So you think of the scale of Richmond versus Lynchburg. We've spent the same amount on our combined sewer program as the city of Richmond has. So that's a big accomplishment for a small city. Just to touch on the environmental benefits, we will be closing one additional CSO outfall. 12 of the remaining 16 outfalls will overflow less than 4 times per year during a typical rainfall year. And then we'll be capturing over 95% of the volume of this combined sewer overflows and treating it here at the wastewater treatment plant. And then for the remaining overflow points, we're actually going to be capturing more solids and other materials at the overflow points to keep it out of the streams and rivers. And then finally, the long-term control plan, when we're done, will exceed the requirements of the James River bacteria total maximum daily load. So basically, we're going to exceed the requirements, water quality requirements, when we finish the program. So that's a huge accomplishment. Just an overview of this project. It includes the 4 million tank behind me. There's also significant improvements to the headworks building, which is 2 buildings behind us here. That includes pump improvements to the pumping capacity, screening capacity, grid system. So the screening system and the grid system take out the large debris and the sediment and everything in the wastewater before it goes to the rest of the treatment plant. So there's numerous steps in the treatment process. It also includes a backup generator. That's the facility right directly behind us here, as well as numerous other facility improvements throughout the site. Again, as mentioned, this is a team effort, and I also would personally like to thank Greeley and Hansen, who is the consulting engineers on the project, PC Construction, who is the construction manager, English Construction, who is a primary contractor on the project, and many other subcontractors throughout the course of this project and other projects. Our team of engineers and staff, and the leadership here at the wastewater plant. Steve mentioned Alvin, but also in addition to Alvin, Steve and other operators and people working here at the plant had a lot of input on the facility and how it would operate and make sure that it could actually operate when it was designed and built. Let's see, and our maintenance staff as well. So Steve mentioned the burden that was placed on our operators and maintenance staff here at this facility during construction, and that's no small task for them to be able to keep this plant in operation and in compliance throughout the construction process and dealing with all the issues associated with that. And I also would like to thank the Department of Environmental Quality. We've partnered with them over the years on this program, and they've been a good state partner and have worked with us very cooperatively, and we have really made a lot of strides in water quality as a result. And then finally, Vice Mayor Wright mentioned that this week the announcement was made that we potentially will receive an additional $25 million in ARPA funds during the special session of the General Assembly. They will be taking that up for debate, and we should know that in the next few weeks. And that, along with a $25 million match from the city over the next 5 years, we will be able to finish the CSO program within the next 5 years, which will be a huge accomplishment. And again, thanks to everybody that's been involved in the program and the citizens of Lynchburg for enduring the program. It's been a great effort and great accomplishment. And we're not quite to the finish line yet, but this project and this facility has really gotten us into where we can see the finish line and where we can actually finish the project. So again, thanks everybody. I appreciate the effort, and I appreciate y'all being here today. So thank you. Now, as far as logistics, please help yourself to refreshments. There's cake over here. As was mentioned, there's a picture of the treatment plant on the cake. I don't know, that may turn your stomach, I don't know. But, but it's cake, so it should be good. And there's goodie bags, and then Steve and others are going to be setting up tours of the facility. And just after you finish your refreshments, if you'll meet over here behind us along the wall back there, they will direct you and have a brief tour. They're not going to do an extensive, complete facility tour. That would take probably 4 hours to do that. So it'll be a hybrid and a abbreviated tour, but it's definitely worth seeing some of the facilities here. So I encourage you to stay for the tour. And again, thank you for being here. Thanks.
All right, 1, 2, 3. All right.
All right.